All right, hello everyone. My name's Eddie Baker. There's a few more people still coming in, but we'll get started anyway. So this is just a short recap of the versions which have been released of EXO. There's actually two recently. 2018.1, which was released early this year around February, and now 2018.2, which has just been released in the last few weeks. And today, what I'm going to show you in the next 20 minutes or so is an overview of those two versions. Plus a little bit extra, there's been a development with two modules which comes with EXO. They're normally a paid module, but they're now free. So I'm going to briefly explain the two new free modules, which you can have added if you want. And at any time, if you've got any questions, down the bottom of your screen, you should have some links in this Zoom webinar that we're taking place today. One of those links will be the chat feature. If you have any questions, type it into the chat area, send it through to me, and I'll address those when I see it. But might be at the end of this. All right, so we'll get into the developments that came out in 2018.1, and then we'll move into the features that came out in 2018.2. If you're not sure of which version you do have at the moment, you can check that by going Help and About in your current EXO program, and that will list there what version you're on. Here I can see I'm on the latest version. The database version is 2018.2. So yours will be saying something a little bit less than that, hopefully. Why that's important though is because not only has there been 2018.1, 2018.2 this year, but there's been other versions as well. So if you are some way behind those versions, there might be other enhancements to the program which might benefit you other than the ones that I'm about to show you today. Okay, so getting into the new features, we'll start with a nice simple one here. Previously, if you have the options here for the custom buttons appear in various screens throughout the system, and they were normally just a little grey button here with a number 1 or the number 2 beside them, but now what they have is what they're actually referencing. So this is referencing a customer history report, and this one is referencing a customer card reorder form. That just helps you to understand which option you should be clicking on, whereas previously it didn't have the caption, it just had the number 1 or the number 2. And these will appear in the debtors, the creditors, the contacts, and stock screens, for instance, if you've got them set up. They are customized, so they're not there by default, but they're just a handy way to quickly get to a report or a form rather than accessing it through the standard drop-down menus. There's also been an update to bank feed transactions. So those of you who have your bank accounts integrated with EXO coming through into the bank feeds area. What I've got here is a screenshot for this. So I don't have bank feeds signed up on my demo account, which we're using today. So I've got a screenshot for you here. What it is the net movement option down the bottom here of the screen. So this just helps you to reconcile with your paper statement or the statement that you're looking at. Normally on those statements we'll have a movement amount, and that should match the movement that you're seeing here on the screen as well in EXO. If it's not the same, then that might highlight that a transaction shouldn't be there or a transaction is missing from EXO. Moving along, we've got an enhancement to the creditor payment processor used to pay your creditors in a batch. So if we open this area up, most of the users will be familiar with it. Oh, that's right, I've got it open down here in the bottom here somewhere. Do you have it? There we go. close that. I think it's the screen here. That's right. So here's our creditor payment processor screen, and what we now have is an unallocated credit column. This helps to identify if any of the creditors have credits against them, so you can sort these out before you pay your creditors. It's just a bit of a step that was missing for some people. They would pay their creditors and not realise that they didn't have to pay the full amount if they had looked for any unallocated credits in the system. So as you can see here, it's in blue, it's in bold. It should be quite easy for the user to see if there's anything there that they need to address before progressing any further with the creditor payment processor. And that feature is standard there now, so it should just be visible for your accounts payable clerk to see that. (2018.1) also improves the performance significantly of the post to GL process. So users who come into this area here, and typically the ones who have lots of transactions which they post, they'd normally click new GL post run and they'd watch the screen flicker away for a while. But now they've rewritten the way that this process works, so it's much faster in operation, cutting down time for users staring at a screen watching a process happen. Keeping in mind though that an earlier version of this, I can't remember exactly which version it was, I think you can schedule the screen to happen overnight, so transactions can get posted without any user interaction even. So that's even faster. So that's just part of the ongoing commitment to improve the performance of the system, which MYOB do throughout many of the versions. They like to improve the way that the screens appear faster on for the user. What they've also done is improve the reporting experience by changing several of the standard reports. So these have been rewritten completely with new features, taking advantage of the I think it was 2017.2 version, which had a change in clarity, the report writer tool. So what that means, I'm just going to show you this tab here. These reports here have been completely rewritten via the new Clarity report engine to make them much faster to display. These will be standard reports in your system via your drop-down menus. Don't worry, you don't have to frantically write these down. I'll show you where you can provide a list, where you can get to the list of these again, so you can see what all of these reports are. But as you can see, there are a substantial amount of reports which they've modified to make them faster to display. Now, the new modules which have now been included as a free module in the system, they are fixed assets and serviceable units. Fixed assets, as the name suggests, enables you to, where is it, asset register here, to have this option on your drop-down menus, and it opens your asset register. From here, you can load in your assets, whether they are land and buildings or vehicles or office equipment or whatever your asset register may be. And normally this is held by your accountant, and your accountant would be depreciating these and charging you for that service. But if you have the fixed assets managed in-house by your team, then you can take away that burden of having the accountant to do it, and you can now manage your fixed asset register within EXO. This functionality, this module has always been available in EXO, but it's always been a paid module. And if you already do have it and you were paying for it, you won't be charged any longer. So when your annual license fee rolls around, you'll notice that the fixed assets and serviceable units, if you have that one as well, will have dropped off. The other module which is now free is Serviceable Units. This is a list of items that you would service on a regular basis and that you want to manage. Maybe these are items that you have in-house, like these cars, but they could also be items that are out at client sites or customers. So in here you can set up when they're due to be scheduled, who they're linked to, which customers, and that enables you to manage a service and serviceable type operation much better. And again, it's all free. All of this is available, all of the knowledge on what the serviceable units and fixed assets do are all available online in the help articles. You can just search for serviceable units or fixed assets in the Education Centre and it will come up with what they're all about, or you can speak with one of our EXO consultants to know more. Moving on to 2018.2. If we were to upgrade you in the future, we would typically upgrade you to the very latest version, in which case it's now 2018.2. So you'd get all those enhancements there with 2018.1 that I've just spoken about, and the ones which I'm about to speak about now in 2018.2, unless there's some obvious reason that we would want to hold you back, like maybe the version isn't quite tried and tested just yet. We wouldn't put you onto the very latest, but 2018.2 is reliable from all accounts, and we do have people on this version right now. Right, so the features that they've added in this one includes the ability to import stock transactions. For those who use this window to record stock transactions, you would type in one line at a time and tab down and enter a second line, but now you can import from a file or from Excel, from the clipboard, just as you would from some other commonly used entry screens. So that enables you to quite quickly speed up the process of importing stock transactions. On top of this, they have made a change to stock in the way that it calculates the average cost. Back in the previous screen that I was just on, the stock movement screen, there was an option there to adjust the average cost, which people may be familiar with. That was the only way to adjust an average cost. But now you can do it within the stock item itself. Under the Utilities drop-down menu, we now have Change Average Cost. And this just changes the average cost for this one stock item only, whereas the previous screen I was in under Transactions and Stock Transactions would then enable you to change a range of stock items at the same time. Also, people had an issue with how the average cost was being calculated. It didn't work to their calculations, their methodology of how they would generally calculate average cost. So MYOB have opened that up so that us here at Focus can change how the average cost is calculated. So if we were to change that to $19 and click OK, we can change the calculation rules which go on behind that. Whereas previously that was just locked down, we couldn't touch it. Right, moving on. For those of you who are aware of Geo Locations, Geo Locations is a way to graphically map where people are and how transactions and information is stored. So if you are using Geo Locations, you'll be familiar with this icon here. It's just the profile option which we turn on and off. It was brought out about 3 years ago. So if you've upgraded in the last 3 years, you'll have this feature. It might just not be turned on at the moment. But this enables you to see exactly on a map where this delivery address is, and that would then enable any sales report or any report in the system to be graphically mapped. What they've done though to enhance this Geo Locations feature is they've enabled it now in job costing. If we open up a job, and in the site address, if you were to type an address into here and click the search icon there, the Geo Locations icon, it would go and find the coordinates, the latitude and longitude, and pinpoint that on the map for this job. So that's a really great feature. It's all well and good in the EXO core, but for the job cost users, the site address was quite often different to the customer's address. Right, as part of their ongoing development of EXO, they, MYOB, update the interface quite often by adding new buttons and new features, obviously. So we're going to talk a bit about some new buttons that they've added to make the screens just a little bit more handy for the people that operate in certain areas. So we'll start, a nice easy one is under the Utilities menu and Data Utilities Invoice Number Search. People would quite often use this screen to search for invoices, and they can now use this to email an invoice as well. Previously, this email invoice button was not available. They'd have to go back into the debtor account, into the transactions tab, and email that certain invoice to do that. But now they can use it from the Invoice Search screen as well, if you use this area commonly. The purchase orders have had a minor adjustment to this. So the branch up here, this branch has always been there. If you have branches, you'll be familiar with this drop-down button. But every time you came back into the screen, it would default to, I think, whatever was the first branch, no matter if you clicked Save as Default or whatever you did. So what they've enabled now is you can change this branch and click Save as Default, and it will store what your default branch is selected to, and not just change it to the first one in the list. Previously, the Save as Default only looked at these 3 tick options and saved those 3 tick options. In Contacts, we can now, let's pick on me, Edward, here we go. We can now, as we inactive a contact, they are now grayed out and in italics, so you can see quite clearly see the inactive contacts as opposed to the active contacts. And this goes for the contact screen as we see here, but also the other areas in the system where contacts, where the contact screen is. So that includes debtors, creditors, even serviceable units. You assign a contact to a serviceable unit. And all those screens, you'll see the same functionality where the name is now grayed out and in italics. All right, and then to wind up, finally, I'll show you 2 more features that they've added. We can now hide supplier names. I don't know who sent this request in, but what MYOB typically do for these enhancements is they monitor what we call an ideas portal. So there must have been an idea in there to hide the supplier name. So now, if there is a main supplier for a stock item, so it might help if I go into the stock item screen, not the creditor. If I go into a stock item screen, there's our main supplier field, and we can click in and see their details. But now there'll be a profile option to hide this field completely. Why that is, I'm not too sure, but that option is now available. But a clue might be that you can also now prevent users from copying to clipboard. So a profile option is now available to prevent users copying to clipboard. So perhaps somebody could come in here, copy to clipboard. I've now got all of your creditor details in here. I could now start up my own business potentially, or transfer that to Excel and use it unwittingly. So what this does is helps to lock down the information stored in your database. This is intellectual property of yours and yours alone. So this way it adds extra security and prevents potentially harmful information getting into the wrong hands. So that's the ability to copy to clipboard, not just in the stock screen, but this ability is in any grid that you see in EXO, and also hiding that main supplier field there. Right, so that's it as a quick summary of the features in 2018.1 and 2018.2 and the two modules which they've included for free, fixed assets and serviceable units. If you want to know more about the features, this is just a brief summary. There are more features. These are just the ones top of mind that get commonly used by our clients. But if you want to know more, you can, if I just refresh my settings here, in EXO, you should have an Education Centre button that you can click on the side here. I'll just click on that. So the Education Centre provides you with release notes on all of the previous versions. What I've said to you today, plus more, are available in these two links here, 2018.1 and 2018.2. And if you find which version you're on via Help and About, so we're on 2018.2, then you can see what other versions you can have a look at here to see what other features and enhancements have come out since then. So by all means, use this Education Centre and use it frequently. It's automatically updated by MYOB. It's just a web page, and if we view that, it just opens up the web page going over the topics which we've just discussed today. All right, well, thank you, everyone. Just a reminder, if you do have any questions, enter it into the chat section below on your screen, and I can answer those. And by all means, check out the Education Centre for more information or talk to us directly. Thank you. I'll stay online for another few minutes. Okay, so no questions have been asked, so that's good, I guess. I'll stay on online for another minute or so, and then I'll end it if I don't get any other questions. Thank you, everyone, for attending.